Morning, it's November 14th. This is To My Little Friends. So why did the Democrats shut down the government for the longest period in history? It's a question that should be asked and answered. In the end, they did not get what they wanted, and finally enough Democrats said enough and negotiated a deal. This shutdown was about one person, Donald Trump. The Democrats' unabashed hatred of Trump forced them to shut down the government for pure political reasons. They relied on their friends in the media to portray Republicans as the villains in this political theater, and for the most part it was working. But when the public finally started being inconvenienced with airline delays and funding shortages for programs like SNAP, the worms started to turn. So why'd they do it in the first place? I would say it was about self-preservation. From the beginning of the dispute, everyone seems to have understood that Mr. Schumer forced a shutdown because he needed to show his state's progressive voters that he could take it to Mr. Trump and so avoid a primary challenge from the left, perhaps from Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, some Democratic voters no doubt believe that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer blocked the Republicans' government funding resolution because he didn't want Obamacare exchange premiums to go up. They're only deluding themselves. The likely premium increases without the subsidies, they're there, but they're not apocalyptic, and certainly not worth the political risk of a 5-week shutdown. Are we seriously to believe that Mr. Schumer and his party felt so strongly about the pandemic year emergency funding, they're willing to crash the U.S. government to extend it? If you want to better understand why Schumer and most of his caucus went along with this shutdown, you only have to read what liberal columnist Ezra Klein wrote in the New York Times. Quote, "It was about showing their base and themselves that they could fight back," end quote. Over in Politico, another liberal outlet covering Capitol Hill, they wrote, quote, "Democrats achieved their primary objective, showing a furious base that they can actually work together effectively and are prepared to fight with every tool at their disposal," end quote. And exactly what was the major tool available? That's right, Rule 22 in the Senate, the filibuster rule. You might remember that in the previous Congress, when Democrats controlled the Senate, they wanted to abolish that rule and end the minority's ability to filibuster. You might also recall that once Republicans regained the majority, Chuck Schumer went to the Senate floor and begged the Republicans not to do what they wanted to do to Republicans. This was after he and Kamala Harris had pledged to end the filibuster when they thought they might win. But after the election, Schumer was changing his tune. Here's exactly what he said on the Senate floor. Quote, "To my Republican colleagues, I offer a word of caution and good faith." Good faith, wow. "Take care not to misread the will of the people and do not abandon the need for bipartisanship. After winning an election, the temptation may be to go to the extreme. We've seen that happen over the decades and has consistently backfired on the party in power. So instead of going to the extremes, I remind my colleagues that this body is most effective when it's bipartisan. If we want the next 4 years in the Senate to be as productive as the last 4, the only way that will happen is through bipartisan cooperation," end quote. What hypocrisy. This guy is unbelievable. But getting back to why the Democrats shut down the government, I maintain they did it simply to appease the left wing of the base of the party. But who is that base to which Ezra Klein and Politico refer? Poke around and you'll find it consists mainly of cash flush foundations, unions, and activist groups. The American Civil Liberties Union, the Sunrise Movement, and other environmental and climate groups, Planned Parenthood, and other abortion rights outfits, an array of immigrant rights organizations, some of them so radical as to be almost insurrectionist. The American Federation of Teachers, the National Education Association, the Southern Poverty Law Center, Black Lives Matter, and other racial justice organizations, the Human Rights Campaign, and an assorted LGBTQ activist groups, scores of foreign-connected Palestinian rights and otherwise anti-Zion organizations, and don't forget George Soros-funded network known as the Open Society Foundation. And it could go on and on. All of these left-wing, fully funded groups that are demanding Democrats stand up and fight Trump. And if anyone's being honest, they would find some interesting facts. Ordinary Democrat voters, they weren't clamoring for Mr. Schumer to shutter the government. Just they weren't outraged when he chose to keep it open in March. And go further back. Rank and file Democrats didn't tell the Biden administration to keep the southern border wide open for 3 years. They didn't threaten to burn down the 2024 Democratic Convention because the president more or less took Israel's side against Hamas. Nor did they require liberal politicians to give squishing on answers to questions about men playing in women's sports. These are the regular rank and file voters. This was the demands by the progressives in the party and their litany of nonprofit groups that are led by ideologues with a full complement of young staffers who have been indoctrinated by liberal academics in the elite universities of the nation. This is why Schumer and his fellow Democratic senators shut down the government. They need to show this left-wing base that they're with them and hope to stave off any challenge to their own elected positions. If you think not, then just look at the calls by these very progressives to primary those senators who dared to break ranks and help reopen the government. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.